Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories.
Case file number 1195, written by Anonymous. My real-life X-Files experience on a desolate highway. I can't say for sure what happened to me that night, but here is what I know. I was driving home for the weekend from school at Indiana University. It takes me about 2 hours to get home, and I left Bloomington around 10 p.m. At exactly 10:53, I am on a rural stretch of the 2-lane highway I take home, and I notice what appears to be flashing lights behind me. I thought, great, I'm getting pulled over. So I turned onto the next county road about a quarter mile from where I noticed the lights. As the car came to a stop, and I started to open my glove box to get out my registration and proof of insurance, the lights suddenly disappeared, and no one drove past. Now, here is where the story takes a turn for the weird, and I'm sure you guys will think I'm just making it all up, because it really does seem like something straight out of a typical UFO movie or story. The electronics in my car started to go haywire. The radio was randomly changing stations while the volume kept going up and down, while the dome light and headlights started to flicker and turn off and back on. This was at 10:56 p.m. I start thinking to myself that my battery must be failing, or else I have a short somewhere in the electric system on my car. So I lean down to pop the hood so I can take a look at the battery, and that is the last thing I remember doing. The next thing I know, I open my eyes and see nothing but the night sky full of bright stars. It was a cold night, and it seemed like I had never seen stars that bright in my life. I sat up and looked around and saw absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. I was in the middle of a field, surrounded by corn stalks left over from the recent harvest. As I started to come to my senses, I started to freak out. Where am I? Why the hell am I asleep in the middle of a field? Where the hell is my car? I got up and started walking toward the distant headlights I could see from a road about a half-mile away. When I got to the nearest intersection, I looked at the signs which read 350 north and 50 west. I was a half-mile away from my car, which was just right off the main road. I started walking towards the headlights I could see on the main road. I can't say how long it took me to walk the half-mile, but it couldn't have been more than 10 or 15 minutes. When I arrived at my car, all the lights were out. My battery had died, which struck me as odd because I couldn't have been gone for that long. I looked at my phone, which was sitting on the passenger seat, and the time was 2:17 a.m. Over 3 hours had passed since I turned off onto the side of the road for the flashing lights behind me. I remember sitting in my car completely dumbfounded, wondering what the hell had just happened to me. After about an hour and a half of just sitting there, I remembered that my battery was dead, so I got on the phone and called AAA to come out and give me a jump. It took about an hour for them to get out to me since I was a good distance away from the nearest town, during which time I just sat in silence, running through the possible scenarios in my head concerning what had just happened. To this day, I couldn't tell you what really happened to me that night. All I know is I can't think of any plausible explanations as to why I woke up over a half-mile away from my car in the middle of a cornfield more than 3 hours after I had stopped. I have only shared this story with one other person, my uncle. I am sure people would either look at me like I'm crazy, or they would call bullcrap on the whole story, and I can't blame them. If somebody came to me with a story like that so closely mirrors a stereotypical encounter story, I probably wouldn't believe them either.
My real-life X-Files experience on a desolate highway. I think there's a reason so many UFO stories sound similar, because it's a similar type of alien that is abducting people. There probably are multiple species that observe us, at least. I doubt there's just one. So it's no accident. And whatever technology this brand of alien uses has an effect on our electronics. It distorts them. Plenty of our devices can interfere with other electronics, for instance, cell phones on a plane. That's sort of archaic now. Cell phones don't really have the juice to interfere with onboard systems that are typically shielded on a plane. But with enough power and unshielded like in a car, like say with a hyper-unfathomably advanced alien spaceship, get Doc Brown and his 1.21 gigawatts out. Gigawatts. A question here that's so interesting to me. Did your mind conjure up the cop car as a reason you pulled over to the side? Was it a constructed memory? Or was it really a cop car randomly pulling you over and then you were abducted by aliens? Perhaps the lights went out for the cop car too if it was real, since the alien ship interfered with the electronics on both cars. You popped the hood and bam, abducted. You didn't mention seeing a cop car near yours when you returned back from the field, so maybe the same thing happened to him, but he got back first and he was freaked out and just took off.
Bonus file written by Robeck 1981. Ghostly whispers stuns unsuspecting couple. My girlfriend and I went to a theme park for the day that was about 2.5 hours away. I'm driving us back home, and by an hour in, I'm exhausted, so I pull over to walk around at the first place I can. This place was dark and terrifying. It was just pavement with undeveloped land on one side, freeway on the other, and lanes for vehicle access. It's close to midnight. Like an idiot, I get out and walk around the car. I get back in, and my girlfriend and I both hear a woman's voice murmur something. Without speaking, we both look in the back seat where the sound came from. Nothing was there. "Did you say something?" I asked. "No. Did you say something?" she asked. We both check our phones. They're muted/on vibrate. I check the radio. It's off. The car is off. No one is around. It's completely dark. Needless to say, we left pretty quickly, and to this day, I can't explain where that voice came from.
Case notes for the bonus file. Ghostly whispers stuns unsuspecting couple. Sounds like a spirit trying to warn you of something. If I had to venture a guess, a lot of people stop nearby that area to refresh themselves before in the past, and accidents then ensue. Perhaps she was one of the accidental victims, maybe of a drunk driver or something. You couldn't make out what was whispered, so it's hard to say, but my guess would be some kind of warning to leave so you don't become a victim as well. And now time for the quote of the day. Better to write for yourself and have no public than to write for the public and have no self. Cyril Connolly. Yeah, you see that with the advent of social media, TikTok and all that. It's not just writing, it's about whatever you put out on the internet as a part of you and your brand, so-called. Well, you want it to represent who you truly are. Otherwise you become a fake, you become a caricature of yourself. And you might get fame. It's like the deal with the devil. You get earthly power, but you sell your soul as a result. And it's an allegory, really. You know, selling your soul to the devil isn't an actual deal you make on like a crossroads and you go to hell after. It's just that you lose yourself. You lose the binding to reality and what actually matters, to connect well with other people. Just knowing that other people are there is important. Even though I'm more of a loner, I still value other people and the connections that can be made. Like even between us, just talking on this channel, it's made me appreciate how important people are and just interacting with them. But yeah, to end this, just say, be true to yourself. If you have social media or not, just be honest. Don't be a fake. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.